What's going on, guys? My name is Dalton Meckie, and I'm coming to you from the podcast / YouTube channel NFC Beasts. So today I'm going to look at the rankings of the playoff contending teams in terms of their chance to make it to the Super Bowl. Okay, so I'm just going to rank them in order. There's 10 teams on this list. One thing I want to note before I get started, I'm not going to include turnovers in this because I realize they're a big part of the game, but assuming that both teams are even in this category, which I don't think is out of line considering all of the best teams have quarterbacks who are very capable of throwing picks. I mean, there's nobody who's a Patrick Mahomes, and even he throws picks. So it's just a hard thing to predict. And so I'm just going to have that line be even. Also, there's nobody with fumble prone running backs. It's just so circumstantial. So let's just keep that line even, and that'll make these rankings a little bit easier. I know some teams would be mad at me for that. Like the Eagles usually don't turn the ball over, but as you can see, the games they lost, they turned it over a lot. So again, it's possible, so let's just keep that even. I'm also assuming that the 10 teams listed made it to the playoffs, even though there's that possibility that they don't. So let's just assume that they're in. Obviously if they don't make it, that's good in some cases, bad in others. So let's get into it here. So first off, I have the rankings of each of the 10 teams for offense. And so going in order, we have the Eagles, the Lions, Cowboys, Niners, Vikings, Seattle, Bucks, Packers, Washington, Giants, and Carolina. So just a few things to note with the offenses. I think that having a good offense in the postseason is important, but what's that phrase that they always used to say? Defense wins championships. So the premise of this argument is going to be that defense wins championships. So I realize there's some really good offenses that can keep their team in the game, and I'm not going to just completely ignore that, but for the most part, I'm going to be ranking this based on the defenses, or at least largely in part. So let's look at the defenses. We got the Niners, best defense in the league, hands down, no doubt about it. I mean, these guys, they're lights out all over. They have Pro Bowlers all over. You got the Eagles, who they lost Avonte Maddox. I think they're actually going to drop a little bit. And so rather than just listing these all out, you could see them here. I'm going to tell you what my current defensive rankings are with injuries, considering how they're trending, how they've been playing the last few weeks. So you have the Niners. I think they stay at 1. They're so good. They just keep playing on another level. I actually have Washington moving up to 2. And even though they let up a big number to the Niners, I think that they just got Chase Young back, who had an amazing game. They're trending up. They're getting guys back. They don't have as much help on offense, and they're still doing it. So don't ignore Washington. They're one of those teams that you do not want to see in the postseason. You're hoping that one of those other teams sneak in, like a Seattle. Anyways, Eagles, I have them at 3 now. I have them dropping down because they did just give up a 40 burger, as Michael Irvin would say. But if you want me to go off about that game, how many of that 40 burger, how many of those drives were inside the 40 burger yard line? How about that, Michael Irvin? Anyways, I think that the Eagles losing Avonte Maddox, their secondary looks so much different. Now, I realize you're going to get Gardner Johnson back, but I still think they're a little bit weak in the secondary now. They still have a great pass rush, so that's going to take some of the weight off. But I want to see something different out of the scheme because, I mean, you can't let Dak carve you up like that. He carved you up like a Christmas ham. Anyways, I got the Bucks at 4. They just came off of, hold on, let me see if I have some notes here on the Bucks. They're only giving up 17 points a game. Their offense is hardly helping them. They only rush the ball for about 70 yards a game. So their offense doesn't control the ball. They turn the ball over a lot. And yet they're still hanging in all of these games. And defense wins championships. So you translate that into the playoffs with Tom Brady, who people are knocking him saying this isn't the Tom Brady. Well, guess what? I guarantee you when the playoffs come around, it is going to be that Tom Brady. So overall, Bucks, very legit defense, okay? Now remember, this is just the defensive rankings. This is still not the, Super Bowl chance rankings. Number 5, I have Carolina. If you look at their last 3 weeks, I have it written down here. They are 3rd in rush defense, and they are 12th in total yards given up. What that says to me is they're trending up on defense. They're starting to get things locked down. One thing to note, and I know we weren't going to talk about turnovers, but their quarterback situation has been up and down all year. And so they've been putting a lot of pressure on that defense with turnovers. I mean, you had PJ Walker in there. You had Baker in there who wasn't playing well. The last game Baker started, he threw 2 picks. Ever since Darnold has come in, he's thrown no picks. And all of a sudden, that defense looks so much better. They gave up only 287 yards to Seattle. That's impressive. Geno Smith balling out this year, only 287 total yards. That's a good game. And then they just silenced a red-hot Lions team who, coming into that game, people thought, I'm sure a lot of people were putting their money on the Lions to make that run, and they absolutely just dominated them. So look out for Carolina coming down the stretch too, if they sneak in, because it's between them and the Bucks. Number 6, I have Green Bay. The last few weeks, again, their defense is looking so much better. They had a lot of injuries earlier in the year, and so coming off of those, playing so much better, they kind of got handed a gift by Tua in the end of that game, but still, overall, with a defense that's trending up, an offense that can run the ball, and Aaron Rodgers on your team, which I know he was getting a lot of hate, but he's still Aaron Rodgers. And he's still going to do veteran things on the field. Like, look at how they played against Dallas. You can definitely get a game like that out of him in the playoffs, if not 2. So don't count them out either. Seattle, they just came off of 2 pretty good weeks. They played KC and the Niners and held them to a pretty good number. I mean, KC controlled the game for sure, but I mean, against the Niners, I think they only gave them 21 points. So they're starting to look a lot better on defense, which is why I have them trending up. Cowboys gave up a 34 burger to Gardner Minshew. Okay, so you want to talk about bad defense. The Eagles did not punt in that game. I have a little stat here for you. Dallas in total yards in the last 3 weeks, and now mind you, they played the Eagles, but they played the Jags and the Texans as the other 2 teams. A Jags team who did turn it over 2 times. So don't tell me, they were perfect. They are at an average of 424 yards in 424 total yards per game. That's 32nd in the league if you just compare it to the other team's average for the year. They're at 22nd in rush defense, giving up 131 a game. And then they're at 293 in pass yards per game, which is, again, 32nd. So they're last in the league in total, last in the league in pass, and 22nd in the league in rush. Is that a defense that's going to win a championship, or that should be a favorite or a second or a third favorite to win the Super Bowl or to get to the Super Bowl? I don't think so. With that in mind, they have had good games. They have had good games with their defensive line where they have gotten to the quarterback, which can take some of the pressure off the secondary, but they've lost key guys, corners. They lost Vander Esch, which was their number one run stopper, and it showed. They've made more of a commitment to stopping the run, but then you give up huge plays. So pick your poison. Do you want to give up huge plays and get into a shootout? Probably, because then maybe you get some turnovers too, which I didn't want to bring into this. But as far as a key to success for Dallas's defense, I think you have to get turnovers because you're giving up gash plays on defense. That's not going to win it. Next, I have the Giants. I mean, the Vikings are a good offense, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think the Giants have it on defense. I mean, for the year, they are 27th in the league on defense, and I don't think it's really gotten better. I have them trending down just a little bit. They've had injuries. Maybe they get some guys back from injury. I think the key to the Giants is actually Daniel Jones, because he's taken an offense that has no weapons and has turned them into a true contender. And I think I read somewhere that they're like a 90% lock to make the playoffs. That's Daniel Jones right there. That's those close games. He doesn't turn the ball over this year. For the most part, he's done an outstanding job for that team. So if they do pull something off, I guarantee you'll be able to look at the tape and say, it was these plays on third down by Daniel Jones that won us this game. 100% guarantee you that. Vikings, they're 31st in the league. They're, of course, going to be second to last on this list. And then Lions, they're 32nd in the league. Of course, they're going to be last on this list. They haven't shown me anything to prove otherwise. I mean, the Vikings just made all the Giants receivers look really, really good, which, again, I give some credit to Daniel Jones, but everybody gashes the Vikings. Everybody does. Same with the Lions. They just got pummeled by the run game. If you can't stop the run, even if you commit to it, they actually started to commit to it, and then Darnold threw all over them. So the hope that I once had for the Lions is all but diminished. I actually don't think they're going to make the playoffs, even though if they do squeak in, I still think they have a chance to make some noise, because all it takes is that magic thing, turnovers. Bad defense just needs turnovers because they're a great offense. Number 4 offense in the league. They're going to be able to go into a shootout at least. And so don't count them out completely, but as far as defense goes, they're not stopping a nosebleed. They couldn't stop the school bus, got your kid with you and you're trying to flag them down. You were just a few seconds late and you, please. Nope. That bus driver is going to keep on going. That's who the Detroit Lions are right now. They need to do something. All right, so here's my final rankings, and I left the defensive rankings and my current defense rankings up just to give you guys an idea of how things moved. So now this is taking into account quarterback play, the offense in its entirety, the defense in its entirety, but obviously with the premise, defense wins championships. So here we go. I got the 49ers with the best chance at 17%. Unless they do something wrong, you can't beat them. I mean, they've beaten good teams over the last few weeks with Purdy, and they were all convincing wins. I mean, they dominated teams. So unless they make big mistakes, I don't see them losing. That's just how I see it, because that defense is going to win them games. And they have McCaffrey. They have huge weapons on the outside. Debo's going to come back. You can't stop them. Number 2 is the Eagles. I mean, if you look, they have the number 2 defense in the league, and that's for the entire year. So you got to have them at least at 1 or 2 with the way they're playing, with their record. They're probably going to get a first-round bye. So you got to win 2 games. I mean, you got to have them with a decent chance. So I'm just a tick under because of the injuries. Their defense, I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as good. I'm just, in my fan base, I kind of hope that their offense is good enough to be better than the Niners if that game were to happen. Okay, number 3, I have the Bucks, because if they make the playoffs, all those things about Tom Brady and the offense not scoring, those go away. Because once they go and play an easy defense, like Dallas looks right now, they're going to light them up. They're at least going to score. They're going to get yards. They're going to get down the field. And so then you're talking about a shootout between Brady and Prescott. And so that could go either way. We could see the Prescott that we saw against the Eagles, or we could see the one that we saw against the Jags with 2 picks. And I'm not saying both those picks were his fault, but it could happen. Those are things that I don't like to predict, but anything can happen with that game, because the Bucs defense is better. They have this, and this is not me making this up. They have the 6th ranked defense. This is up-to-date stats I looked up online. This is real. 6th to 14th for the year. In recent, Dallas is down at 32nd. So even if you take something in between, they're like 20th, 21st in the league. You know, they need to step up. Now, Dallas is a team that, once I get down to them, they're a team that I definitely think can rise up, but I'll get down to that. So, number 4, I have Washington, because they have a great defense. Again, not making this up. Number 4 defense in the league. I think they're playing like the number 2 defense in the league right now. They got Chase Young back. They're rising. They have a good run game, so they're going to be able to hang in games because of their defense. So do not count them out. If they make it, watch out for Washington. Number 5, I have Green Bay, because again, defense is rising, not making this up. For the year, they're at 17, but they had a lot of injuries earlier in the year. They've had a lot of like shootout games against the Eagles, the Cowboys. So, you know, they've played some really good high-powered offenses too. But in recent weeks, they've started to rise and shine. And a prime example was against the Dolphins this past week. You know, didn't give up a lot of points. So, here we are. I have them, and I mean, if you look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're ranked 6th on the defensive rank, and they are ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th on my total rank. And that's bringing into Aaron Rodgers into play, playing at his, I don't want to say playoff, because he's not a great playoff quarterback, but he is a very good clutch quarterback. If you need him to do something, he's going to make a great play. So, next on my list, I have Carolina. This one's going to make some people upset. But here, I actually had them higher, but I looked into them some more. Their offense is a little shaky, but again, since they got Darnold in there, no picks. If you don't turn the ball over, They have a defense who's rising. They're 19th for the year, but in the last 3 games, like I said, they're 3rd in rush defense and they're 12th in total yards given up. That's a good recipe, and that's not against bad teams. That's against the Lions, the Seahawks, and the Steelers. But the Steelers have looked so much better as a team, so I think those were 3 good teams that they went up against, especially on offense. So you take that all into consideration. If their defense actually is trending up and it makes sense, less turnovers, you're putting less pressure on your defense. If their defense doesn't get exposed in these last few weeks, I want to hang on to them in this spot. Then I have Dallas. Now, mind you, look at the percentages here. It's like a 1% difference of what I'm saying. Dallas versus Carolina, 2% for them versus Green Bay. So I'm not putting them on wildly different planes here. Anything can happen in any week. Dallas could come in, they could beat the Niners. Any of these teams can beat any of these teams any given Sunday. The Texans can go in and beat any of these teams any given Sunday. So this is just based on their defense, what is most likely to happen. Also with Dallas, again, I wanted to mention this a little bit more. They do have the opportunity to rise up in this rank of mine because their defense, their line can get home. And if that starts to go up in these next few weeks and going into the playoffs, they'll have a chance. They won't be putting a lot of pressure on those DBs and the corners. But if their pass rush isn't getting home and they're still giving a lot up on the ground, I don't see it. But we'll see. Then I have the Giants. Again, their defense looks kind of soft. Maybe one thing I do like about their defense, though, is they're kind of like a bend, don't break. So despite their rank of 27th, they only give up 22 points a game. And so that stacks up pretty well against the league. If you're wondering, let's see, what do the Eagles give up? Eagles at number 2 give up 20.5. And so they're only giving up 2 more points a game on average. They're not a bad defense in terms of the bend, don't break philosophy, but I'd have to see more out of them to give them a higher ranking, especially considering they don't have wide receivers. If they had wide receivers, this would be a totally different conversation because I think Daniel Jones is the real deal. I think he's going to surpass a lot of quarterbacks next year if they give him some help. Vikings, again, couldn't stop a nosebleed. They are terrible on defense. That's not going to win you a championship. Same with the Lions. I don't even want to give them too much airtime here. If they pull something off, if the Vikings pull something off, it'll be Justin Jefferson. It'll be in a shootout because they got turnovers. Same for the Lions. It'll be Goff. It'll be Swift. It'll be Jamal Williams. It'll be that Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love him. He's great. I think he's a true number 1. But what are you going to do with those teams? You're going to probably go one and done. So the reason I don't put Dallas in a one and done scenario 100% is because of that offense. They've proven consistently that they can get into a shootout. They can be down a few scores and still come back and make it happen. So offensively, they're very good. But when you go up against San Fran, what's that going to look like? So those are my rankings. I'd love to hear from you guys. Hit me up in the comments, like and subscribe. It's been a lot of fun. I've been planning this for quite some time, so I'm glad I finally got it out to you guys. And yeah, have a great day.